Welcome to the Bald Mountain Jeep Trail. Located in George Washington National Forest near Stewart, Virginia, this trail extends approximately 10 miles from the northern entrance at Cole Road all the way south to the Blue Ridge Parkway. Bill and I arrived in the early evening and found dispersed camping just up the hill from where Cole Road meets the Bald Mountain Jeep Trail. The next morning found Bill and I driving up the rocky switchbacks that are characteristic of this end of the trail. Both on-X off-road and off-road trails rate this as a level 5 moderate trail. You can see here some of the reason why perhaps they thought that appropriate. In our case, however, Bill decided to take the easier line with the trailer. Being a little tired the first night we came in, we took the first dispersed campsite that we found that was appropriate. This morning we stopped to check out another site on the way up the hill. It was pretty small, so I think we're glad we stopped when we did. The Bald Mountain Jeep Trail climbs around 1,200 feet in the first 3 miles. That first northern section is characterized mostly by some rocky off-camber sections, but the trail itself is fairly clear and fairly wide at this point. Bill and I were hoping for some epic views on the way up, but at this time of year, any epic view is blocked out by all those leaves. At around 3.5 miles, we found another campsite. We also noticed there was a binocular icon in Gaia GPS, and so we explored the narrow, short trail out to see what we could see. We also took the left track shortly after that viewpoint campsite, and were rewarded with some additional views. The tracks that create the Bald Mountain Jeep Trail were built way back in the early 1900s to access logging and mining camps in the area. Can't imagine what it would have been like back in that time, hacking these out of the wilderness. Although we enjoy this trail today as one heck of an adventurous ride, I imagine those early miners and loggers found this to be a rustic, difficult, and meager existence up amongst these beautiful mountains. As you'll notice, the views that morning were a little bit smoky due to that northern wind blowing down smoke from some of the wildfires in Canada. Soon after that viewpoint, the left and right forks of the trail join back together, and that's where you'll find the Big Levels area of this trail. It's at this point the Jeep Trail levels out at about 3,200 feet for the next 2 miles as it winds its way amongst the deciduous forest. While driving the Big Levels, you'll also start finding another obstacle that's very typical in this area. This one doesn't look too intimidating, but just wait. This one, for example, turned out to be a little deeper than anticipated. A little bit deep, isn't it?
Whoa, I thought that hit the floorboards.
Did it hit the floorboards?
Oh yeah, that was neat.
Although most of these mud holes had nice solid rock bottoms, occasionally you'd be surprised by soft sandy ones. We also had to be aware of other hidden obstacles in some mud holes. It's not often I find Bill swearing at something on the track, but this one caught him off guard right about here. That one caused Rue to dive for cover, but at least Bill's still smiling. In addition to mud hole after mud hole after mud hole, this part of the trail also can get very narrow in places. Expect some pinstriping. This trail is closed to vehicular traffic from January through March. These big mud holes may be one of the many reasons. You notice that I have an awful lot of video of us driving through these mud holes. But here's the other part that's interesting. We didn't drive through a lot of them because there are bypasses for some of the larger ones. All the ones you're seeing here are the ones that didn't have a well-established bypass. Don't get me wrong, Bill loves taking those harder tracks. And with a winch and plenty of winch points, we would have been fine. But with a trailer in tow, we generally take the easier track. There's nothing terribly technical about this particular area of trail, and if you're persistent, you will eventually move past this section of mud holes. From here, the trail climbs up again to the top of Flint Mountain, 3,445 feet. By now, you probably ought to be pretty used to that pinstriping. It's hard to avoid. Gosh, it's super deep, isn't it?
Yeah, makes it all look easy.
Soon after crossing over the top of Flint Mountain, we noticed another binocular icon on Gaia GPS. This one was a little more elusive to track down, but we again dove into the forest. Campsite! After the initial wrong turn or two, Rue finally led us on to the viewpoint. From the viewpoint, it's only about another 3 miles of trail to find your way out onto the Blue Ridge Parkway, through, of course, a few more little mud holes. This particular part of the trail can be much more narrow, but it also boasts a much larger number of dispersed campsites, including this one where we stopped for lunch to enjoy yet another epic view. We started driving this trail the Thursday evening before the 4th of July weekend. We finished the trail a little after lunchtime that Friday. And despite the pending holiday weekend, we saw absolutely no one on the Jeep trail, neither a vehicle nor a person. It is amazing when you can get a view from on high of this area. It reminds you how small you are in the big scheme of things, and how wide and wonderful this world is. By now you might be wondering, why is this the Bald Mountain Jeep Trail? Well, soon after this campsite you can drive to the top of Bald Mountain, but the view was so underwhelming, I didn't even take a picture. Soon thereafter, you find yourself driving down out onto the Blue Ridge Parkway at the Bald Mountain Overlook. It was here that we aired back up our tires to make miles towards our evening destination. Prue, well, she was pretty bored with the whole thing and just wanted to get out and walk. While Bill worked at airing up those tires, I explored a little and found, for example, this little snake hanging out in the grass. The Blue Ridge Parkway runs 469 miles from Virginia down into North Carolina. It's well known for epic view after view after view. We drove south until we found the Otter Lake Waterfalls, a nice place to stop and allow Rue to get out and stretch her legs. Coming back to this place felt a little odd, because I actually have a photograph of this on my wall that I took when I lived in Virginia many years ago, and I didn't even remember where I'd taken it. Thanks for joining us as we tackled the Bald Mountain Jeep Trail. Make sure to join us next time as we set out on the Mid-Atlantic Backcountry Discovery Route in search of 3 towers. Until then, go out and find your own adventure.